We will crack into it. Kia ora koutou, everybody. My name is Andy Mackay. I work as a consultant for Ground Truth, and my background is in ecology. I've been trapping and using Trap.NZ for about 5 or 6 years now, and been working for Ground Truth for about the last almost a year. So on the line as well, we have Adam Shand, who helps out with a whole bunch of business side for Ground Truth, and also is helping with Trap.NZ with the training videos and things like that. And we also have Andy Saunders, who is our lead mobile phone app developer. So he's on here as well. Yeah, so I was saying just earlier, for those that came on a bit later, there's a chat button down the bottom of your screen. If you could just write your, introduce yourself down there and give us an idea of what your background is in terms of trapping and also your experience with Trap.NZ. That just helps to know how to tailor this a little bit. But yeah, just to be very clear, this is a introductory overview of Trap.NZ, so it is set at quite basic level. So if you have been using Trap.NZ for a while, some of the stuff might be a little bit basic, but the idea is that this is for new users, Trap.NZ, people that don't have much experience with it. So we've got Kate here from the Waikato Regional Council. So Kate used Trap.NZ as a volunteer for stoat lines and backyard training. So welcome, Kate. And just as we go along, if others can type in there as well. We also have there's a question and answer button down the bottom of your screen. And so if you have questions specifically around the talk, if you can ask them in there, and then Adam can answer those either by typing, or we'll have little breaks as we go along, and I answer those verbally as well. All right, so let's crack into it. So yeah, Trap.NZ really came about probably around about 70 years ago now, where World Wildlife Fund New Zealand was interested in providing tools for the community conservation sector, and Ground Truth had already been providing web-based data and mapping tools with the ability to link to mobile phone data capture, mainly around weeds. And so this was an opportunity to take that experience into the trapping space, and from that, Trap.NZ was born. And the idea was to make this project freely available to community groups, and from there it's growing quite massively. Yeah, so just find my mouse. So we have about 2,200 projects on Trap.NZ at the moment, and they go right from backyard projects from a single property to projects that are hundreds or thousands of hectares. So we've got this little video here which just sort of zooms around and shows traps around the Wellington region, or projects around the Wellington region. There's about 12,000 users of Trap.NZ, and we have many major projects as well. So some of the biggest ones we have are Cape to City, which is based in Hawke's Bay, Kiwi Coast in Northland, Miramar Eradication Project in Wellington, and Predators Free Taranaki, which is based around Mount Taranaki. And so, yeah, you can see as you zoom around on this video, so if you go to find projects on their website, you can basically do this exact thing. And you zoom in, those blue markers are projects. The hexagons show where traps are. And as you zoom out, they sort of all join together into bubbles. So features and functions of Trap.NZ. Obviously, we have traps and trap records. There's also the ability to look at databasing bait stations, monitoring data. So you have the capability to record chew cards, tracking tunnels, etc. There's the ability to 5-minute bird counts. If you're using trail cameras for monitoring, there's the ability to upload trail camera information. And there's quite a big project behind that at the moment as well, looking at AI and automatic image recognition, which is still in progress, but we're hoping that will be up as soon as possible, really. We also have capability to connect to radio sensor traps. So there's a range of different companies out there like EcoNode with their smart traps, which basically send signal to either using mobile towers or radio waves, and then you can basically, when your trap goes off, you can get sent a email or text message and saying that your trap needs to be reset. We have a website and integrated mobile app. So when you're out in the field with your mobile phone, you can enter your trap data and that automatically gets uploaded to the website. There's also a bulk import and export function. So if you have been trapping for quite a while and have a big database that isn't in Trap.NZ, you can basically put that into a format that Trap.NZ realizes and upload that to the website, so you're not losing that data. It's all in one place. And then for the data that isn't Trap.NZ, there's the ability to export to CSV or Excel files and do further analysis on your information. And there's a whole range of integration with other systems there as well. So who looks after Trap.NZ? So it's developed and maintained by Ground Truth, which is the company that I work for. So that's a sustainable land management consultancy, which is, we have offices in Paikakiriki on the Kapi coast and in Te Awamutu as well. So we do a range of conservation-based projects, large-scale landscape native forest planting, and we also do consultancy work around farming operations, integrated land management, and that whole suite of issues, and forestry as well. So Trap.NZ is based on open source software systems. So the whole philosophy around it is that it's open and accessible to people. And yeah, we just want to ensure that as many people have the ability to use Trap.NZ as possible for the public good. And so to help make it happen, a collaborative setup to provide governance and ongoing support. So the collaborative is made up of a range of regional councils, philanthropic trusts, and government agencies. So you can see here who those groups are. So I'm going to move on a bit to actually what Trap.NZ contains. And so the way that we'll run through is this webinar is split into 4 different parts. So we'll look at projects, then we'll look at installations, which covers your traps, bait stations, monitoring stations. We'll look at how you add records, and then we'll look at the reports that you can get at the end. And don't forget as well, so we've got that question and answer ability. So if you have any questions as we go along, just type them in and we'll break as we go and answer those questions. So the major, I guess, top hierarchy of Trap.NZ is a project. So anybody, Trap.NZ user can set up a project. So as I was saying earlier, it could be just your backyard, or it could be hundreds or thousands of hectares. So you have a list of projects. So my mouse, your project names down here, so you can be part of as many projects as you'd like. And there's also the ability to do reports across multiple projects. So that has a more limited function, but if you have a group of projects in an area and you want to know what's been called across all those projects, you can run a report that goes across that and see that information. And then we'll go into what roles are, but this shows basically you can set, if you're a project administrator, you can set missions for each project. So you can have users that can only add information to their own traps, or you can have users that can edit other people's traps and things like that, depending on what your user level is. And so when you click into a project, what you'll see is this Queen Elizabeth Park screen here. So that's your project name up there. At the bottom left of the screen, there is a summary table, which tells you all your catches over the life of the project, all the catches over the year, which is today's date minus 365, and then over the month, which is today's date minus 30. And this map shows all these red splotches are traps, and then they've got the trap name on them as well. And then we just got another example of that down here for a different project. So for new users that are coming along and want to sign into Trap.NZ, this is the login or the registration screen. So we just ask for name, and so that helps when in the reporting where you can project administrators can see who's entering information and who's recording catches. Address and contact phone number aren't required, but they can be quite useful for backyard trapping projects because each administrators know which households are involved. You can make your username whatever you want it to be, and then there's just a further screen here for your email address. And then if you are a project administrator, this is the screen where you can add or invite new members. So you can type in or copy and paste in, if you have a list of emails, if you're starting a new project, you paste them into here. And then you can assign people different roles. So an administrating member can see and edit all installations and manage members. So that's kind of the top tier. You only want to really give that to a handful of people. Editor, so they can see and edit all installations. A read-only member can see all the content, but they can only edit installations assigned to them. So that's probably where, for large projects with lots of users, that's probably where you want most of your members. Or no role is they can see and edit only installations assigned to them. So that's even more restricted, where they can only see their own traps, and that might be if there's privacy concerns around people seeing where traps are and different properties and things like that, you might want to have it quite locked down. So to create a project, this is the screen that you see. And so you type in your name here for the project. These two checkboxes, they're really important. So the question is, do you want to list this project publicly? So if you want people to know about your project and to be able to join your project, then make sure that that box is checked. Some people run private projects which they don't have any interest of other people knowing about it, and that's totally fine. But what we are really encouraging people to do is to share summary data. So that lets basically to be able to share data at a regional level, and that allows us to see summary data for the project. So the basic number of traps, catch counts, baits used, etc. But it's aggregated to a 200 meter by 200 meter grid, and the exact locations of traps and bait stations are confidential, so it's not shared outside the project. And what we're hoping to do as well is, you know, this is because there are so many users and projects now, is that there's a huge amount of information in here. and we'd really like to see this information get used and analysed at a national scale. And you know, there's potentially some interesting information around when different species are active, when they're getting trapped around the country, which bait's being effective. Yeah, so a full range of things. So Andy's just put a link in there that you can have a look at, so that the summary data appears on the hex maps. And so it's got an example there from Predator-Free Franklin. Right, where are we? So yeah, so still setting up projects here. And so we ask you to add in a basically a geographical boundary. So you can either draw this on the map itself using these tools down here, or if you already have a polygon drawn elsewhere, you can copy that information into here. So there's a bit of a knack to this. I'm not going to go into detail about how to do this, but this is just to let you know how you can do it. And another thing that you can do in Trap.NZ is set up lines. So the idea behind this is that these are a grouped set of lines that basically have a string of traps or a string of bait stations or monitoring stations along the line. So it means that when you go out to check those installations, they're essentially sticking to one line at a time, and it's just a simpler way of grouping installations together. So your question there, Andrew, I'll coming up to a question section soon, so I'll answer that then. Here we are. So Andrew Sinclair has asked, if you and some of your neighbours are servicing 3 or 4 landowners' bait stations, how is it best to categorise these people as an editor? Just have a think about that. So yeah, it would be, yeah, I would agree that editor would be best, because it allows the people that are doing the servicing and entering the information to be able to access everybody else's bait stations as well. And I mean, I think that the main thing there is to just keep it to a small enough group that you you know who's changing information, because it does give you a reasonable amount of power to delete records as well. So just make sure you know who are editors and keep an eye on that. Yeah, true. And Andy has said, so you can actually assign traps to people as well, so they can only change traps that have been assigned to them. So that would be at that lower level for a read-only member. So you can a read-only member there, they can see all the content, but only the installations assigned to them. So you'd basically assign, and you can assign installations to multiple people as well. Okay, so just moving on to installations. So when we say installations, we're talking about traps, bait stations, and monitoring stations. So it's just a catch-all phrase, really. But these are all treated in the same manner by Trap.NZ in the way that you input information. So this is what you'd see for an installation screen. So this is a trap that's called FR9. You can see over here that's a DOC 200. It was installed in 1st of July 2012. It's had 23 kills. It's currently active, and it's on the trap line called Farm Race. So that's basically this yellow line, which is yeah, just that basic sort of geographical line that a group of traps are on. You have the latitude, longitude of the trap, so that because it has to have a position on the map, so that gives you the position there. You have the base layer icon here, so that means you can change that to a yeah, it's different base layers, so that's different kinds of maps. So for backyard trapping projects, sometimes it's easier to use street maps view. You can actually see the numbers on households and things like that. And then you also have this button up here, which is that goes to full screen, which allows you to have a good view of what you're looking at. Add a supplementary trap over here. So some traps will have, some installations will have more than 2 traps attached to them. So the classic is with backyard trapping with the tunnel traps, is you might have a rat trap in front and a mouse trap at the back. So a way to join those up is you can add a supplementary trap. And then that big green button is how to add a trap record, or one of the ways to add a trap record when you're on the website. So there are multiple ways to add trap records, but this is going to a specific trap to do that. So if you want to add installations, you can do this via the website, the app, or do a bulk upload. So we'll quickly cover off what that means. So to create a trap on the website, yeah, this is the screen. You basically go into, you'll see this menu up the top, and so you go click on that traps button there, and then add a new trap. Excuse me. So you add a new trap code here. It's useful to add leading zeros to the number. So it'll, example, we have T001, T002, etc. That allows you to easily sort them numerically when you're doing reports and things like that. But it's totally up to you how you want to name your traps. You have the date installation and installed by. We find that's useful for servicing traps. So you might have a service period that you want every trap to be serviced, every 12 months or every 5 years, whatever your period is. One of the projects I'm involved in is in a very salty environment. So we used to have a whole bunch of galvanized DOC 200s, and eventually most of those disintegrated. So we have changed to stainless steel. But yeah, it's just a way to, if you know that you're, you might need to recalibrate your traps, oil the springs, things like that. So it's just a way to keep an eye on when those were first installed. Trap type is fairly self-explanatory, and you can add a double trap in there as well. The sensor provider, so that is if you have one of those remote sensing traps, you can add the sensor provider in there, and that will give you a series of extra information to add as well. The trap line, so you can add to a line if you like, if you want to use that style of system. And then just moving down, you add the traps onto the map. So you can add those coordinates manually if you already have them in a GPS, or you can add those on the map using this function down here. And again, I'm not going to go into how to do that exactly, but we will be running another webinar that will go into more detail around this. Images, sometimes it's useful to have an image of where the trap is located, so it's easier to find, and you can add notes down here about anything about the trap. So backyard trapping, for those large projects, it might be that there's if you're servicing traps in other people's backyards, it might be that there's a dog on the property or things like that. And down here, you can retire traps as well. So if you're moving traps around, you might want to retire them from a position. And it means that you keep all the records, but you can't add more records to that location. So this is a example of the app. So this is on a mobile phone. So up here, this is a monitoring station, so that's green. This is a bait station here, so that's blue. And this is a trap down here, and that is red. And so these have all got a red ring around them, and that means that those traps haven't been checked, or those installations haven't been checked. So when you check those, they will go to a green ring around those. Got your zoom buttons here. You can also pinch pull, where you basically, use my camera, put your fingers on the screen and pull like that, and it'll zoom in, or you can zoom out that way as well. This button here is your location, and to basically to make the phone move to where you are, you just click this button down here, and it will basically center on where you are. And this red dot shows with the rings around it is basically showing that it's thinking about it, and it's finding your more accurate location. And you see here as well that the tiles in the background, you can set the detail that these are downloaded to. So obviously tiles with more detail need more data to download, but this is basically, yeah, getting better and better resolution as it's finding where you are. And then you've got the base map layers over here as well. And the other thing that we want to do here is to add a new installation. So that's this button down here in the bottom corner. So basically we've clicked add trap, and you're moving this icon here around to where you want the trap to be. So you can just do that with your finger. And then once you're happy with that position, you can click the green check mark there. And that will take you to this screen. And so it's just saying add installation. And so you can add either a bait station trap or monitoring site or monitoring station. And then so we've clicked on new trap here, and you can put in the code, trap type, the description, the trap line if you like to, the sensor information, and then you can add a photo here, and then click on save down here. So one of the things with the app is you've got to hold down, when you're clicking save, hold it down for around about a second, and if you don't hold it down for long enough, it will tell you that it hasn't been saved. So the reason for that is if you're out in the field, is basically not saving by mistake, so it has to be got an intentional hold down. So just be aware of that. Okay, and this is how to bulk import traps. So again, I'm not going into too much detail other than just tell you that it's possible. There is a template that you can use down here, which basically is to put your information into a format which Trap.NZ understands, and then you can add your information here and upload the file down here. All right, any questions on that section? We'll carry on. So moving on to records now. So this is once you're starting to input information. Well, yeah, this is basically what you see. So this is an example of bait station records. So you have your bait station, the date and time that it was recorded, the formulation that you're using in your bait stations, the amount of bait remaining. Bait removed is when you're checking bait stations, if you're taking old bait out, that would be your bait removed. And then bait added is new bait that is getting put into the bait station. And the bait taken is basically the Trap.NZ looks at what was in your bait station last time, and then basically subtracts what's left. And so that lets you know that how much bait is getting taken out of those bait stations. We had someone asking last week about how you how you tell what the weight is of bait that's getting taken. It's really just an eyeball, the way that we do it. So yeah, essentially for projects that I'm involved in, we weigh the baits before we put them out, and then it's just taking a guess about, if we put out 400 grams, then there's about half left, so there'll be 200 grams that's left. So it's not an exact science, but unless you can go out and weigh everything, that seems to be the best way to do it. So trap records, this is very similar. So you've got a date that the record was recorded, the status of the trap. So these ones here have been sprung, so that's a strike, and we've had a rat caught down here. You can take a photo as well on the app, and you'll see that coming up. This is an example of monitoring records. So this is for chew cards. So the date here has a period that those chew cards are active for. So this chew card here was out for 10 days. Had the lure as peanut butter, the line that it was added to, the monitoring type, and then the species that have been recorded as well. And this is an example of the 5-minute bird count screen. So this is what the record screen looks like. So you've got the monitoring station, so it's station 14, the date and the time that this bird count was done at, the temperature, wind, other noise, and the sun. And then you've got the species of birds that were heard or seen, and then it's just total down here. All right, any questions for that section? Keep moving. So we're on to reports now. And this is I think the really nice stuff, because you can see what's been happening. So this just gives an overview of some of the reports that are possible. So this in the bottom left is a heat map. So any project can juice these. And this one is just showing ferret, stoat, and weasels caught on this particular project. So you can see the dotted outline is the project boundary. That doesn't have to be exact, it's just really indicative of where your project is. And you can see that there's been a lot of activity down here. So basically, if it's red, there's a lot of activity. If it's green, there's a little bit, and if it's yellow, that's kind of in between. And it also shows the general location of where your traps are. So if you've had 1 or 2 captures, it'll show up as a light green. And there's all different kinds of filters you can use. So you can filter by species, by date, by line, baits, trap or status as well. Over here is one of the outputs that are possible from Trap.NZ. So this is on the Predator Free Wellington website. So this is a 5-minute bird count report. So you can see there's Tui up there, and this is historical data which has been uploaded to Trap.NZ because we didn't exist in 2011, and it's showing that there's been a relatively stable Tui count between 2011 and 2016, and then there's been a bit of a jump in 2017. And bottom right is just a chart of basically catches per month for another project. So this just sort of shows you where there's been lots of activity for different projects. And you might notice that there's this bit of a jump with a unspecified, and that happened. So this is a project that I'm involved with, but we had a couple of new trappers that were basically, that was when they checked their good natured traps which had counters on them. So they were basically, that's just the counters added up and we don't know what was caught, but there's a number there at least anyway. And that one of the useful things of this is just seeing basically when your spikes in activity are. So in the areas where I trap, we normally get a spike around Christmas time for rats especially, and then around a sort of March, April, we get another big spike in catches when yeah, I guess all the rats are trying to get fat for winter. And it is really depends on what's fruiting, what other foods available as well. So we find that we can be quite different to other places around the country. Right, so this is a heat map as well, but this is for bait taken. So this is the Miramar eradication project. So you can see between these dates, they had a lot of bait taken in this area over here to the west of the airport, and they still had bait stations around the whole peninsula, but this is really where the hotspot of activity was. And I'll just play a short video which shows remote sensing traps. So this is what you'll see if you have traps. So this is using a Econode Smart trap. So where the rings are basically going off, that is showing that those traps have been sprung. And so that means that whoever's looking after those traps can go and check those and reset them. And once they get reset and rebaited, those rings will stop flashing. So this is where are we? So in the Trap.NZ app, sorry, I've jumped around a bit, mixed up screens slightly, but so this is in the app, just showing some of the layers that are possible and how to add information as well. So like I was saying before, if you're in a backyard project, you can change the layer to see the numbers for properties. So it's easier to find traps that way, especially if you're door knocking and trying to get onto people's properties. So over here, this is what the screen looks like for traps. We've got a bait station screen down here. One of the things to point out is you've got these sliders for bait remaining, bait removed, and bait added. So you can slide those up and down rather than typing in an amount. And then also this is the 5-minute bird count screen over here. And so you basically run this in the app, and as you're going, you can click that you have either heard or seen each of those species, and that will give you a tally over here as well. So yeah, so adding records. Sorry, I've actually got this in the wrong order, but that's okay. We'll fix it up for next time. So when you add those records, you do them individually to a trap. You can do it to a group of traps at all the same time, or you can do it with the app. So we've already covered this off in terms of add a new trap record. And I'll skip through to adding catches. So this is adding for a series of traps. So you can apply your filters here in terms of what traps this basically will add all the same information to a series of traps, and you can apply it to the traps that you want to. So that would be that you're applying this to the central circuit line. All those traps are going to be automatically still set bait bad, and they were all rebaited with a whole egg. And then that will take you to this screen where basically you can select all or select none, and you can see here that every trap has been still set bait bad, you've reset with the whole egg, but then you're going down to CT05, which is one we actually caught a rat, and so you want to change that information down there to a rat, so that gets changed to sprung. So that's just a way in the website to do a whole series of traps quickly at the same time. And then when you click save, that will all the traps which have been saved, that will come up as green down there, so you know which ones have been changed. And so this is in the app screen. So this is actually showing my backyard. So you can see here, these traps here have been checked recently because they've got a green triangle around them. These bubbles here, which have the twos, they're actually showing that there's two traps. So over on the screen here, you've got the supplementary and the main trap here. So when you click on, when you tap on this bubble, it splits between the two traps there, so you can zoom on those and choose either one. Then in the app, when you are adding the information to the trap records, basically up the top here, the dark ones are traps which haven't been checked, and then the green ones are the traps that have been checked recently. So you can basically, using these buttons down the bottom, you can skip back and forth between traps on your trap line. And add in your species, the trap status, condition, and rebaited as well. So condition's useful. So you can run reports to see, like I was saying, if your trap needs to be replaced or things like that, you can add that in and then run a report. And so next time you go out, you know if certain traps need to be replaced or have a bit of TLC. So this is what you see when you first open up the screen. I've added information in here, and then I've saved it down here, and this is saying, see, it was grey up here and now it's green up here. It's saying just now it's got a tick, so it's just been saved. Okay, so yeah, it's about 45 minutes in, and that is the end of our webinar. Any questions before we go? Can sit here for a couple of minutes and just anything else comes through. But hopefully that was useful and gives you an overview of what's possible. Yeah, like I've said, it is meant to be reasonably high level, basic overview. So we will be running more webinars that go more in depth about how to add trap lines, the mapping capabilities, and how to better manage projects and run reports and things. Thanks, Chris. Okay, hopefully, Chris, that was helpful. Oh yeah, so Andy's just mentioned mentioning Backyard Trapper. So Backyard Trapper is a basic user function for people that you know, might not really be into trapping, but are keen to have a rat trap in their backyard. So basically, they don't see any of the stuff which I just showed you, but it's a way for them to add information easily. So it's basically just one page that shows the traps that they've been assigned, and yeah, it's just a much simpler interface for them to input information. So that's always an option as well. So that's if you go backyard.trap.nz, and then that will take you to that screen. And yeah, so that's it is definitely a work in progress. So we're sort of thinking about how to make it more accessible to people, because we are aware that Trap.NZ, the main website can be quite complicated and difficult for people to get their heads around. Andrew Sinclair has asked, what report information do you see as being most useful to funders? So that's a really good question. So I mean, for us, so for one of the projects that I help to run, we have around about 200 traps and 100 bait stations. So I mean, I think we've always got this I guess one of the issues with community conservation projects as a whole is that there's a lot of trapping data is really great, but it just tells you how many things that you've killed. So I think and the information that we're trying to add to Trap.NZ in the monitoring side of things is that if you can actually show that you've made a difference, so with the bird counts, with the chew card data and things like that, if you can actually show that you're you're on top of things and that you're a reputable outfit, I think that's really useful to be able to show us that, yeah, that monitoring information I think is really important and often gets missed by a lot of community groups. So yeah, I'd recommend focusing on that. There was a question that got answered. Yeah, so Kate just asked about other monitoring options such as bat monitoring. Yeah, so Adam's just that. So I mean, we are funded in part by the collaborative, but if it is all money, and we do put a lot of unpaid hours into this as well in terms of the business. So and at some point we do need to do things which make money as well. So it's always that push pull between what we want to do and the time available and the money available as well. So yeah, I mean, there's always potential to add more functionality. And bat monitoring is one that I'm aware that has become more popular, and definitely with those bat listening stations which you can get as well. So yeah, it's a potential, but yeah, it would need to be discussed further, and I guess have a bit of a work plan set out for that, and some funding coming from somewhere as well. Just running through the other comments. So yeah, so Chris has asked if there's any other Trap.NZ users in the Nelson area. Yeah, there definitely are. We should have all your email addresses, and we're going to send out just a very short questionnaire just to get your feedback on today's webinar, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd want to see more and less of. So please be honest, let us know, because we want to make these as good as possible. Yeah, and Andy's just made a good point there that toxin in the environment that funders can be concerned about. So especially if you're using brodifacoum, because it is persistent in the environment, and yeah, funders do want to know sometimes about what amount of those things that you're using. And there's also animal welfare concerns around capture monitoring. So if you're using cage traps, which then require a dispatch to make sure that you're doing that in the appropriate way, and checking your traps in a regular way as well, that are beholden to animal welfare laws. Okay, so Andrew Sinclair's just made the point that with bird monitoring, good to somehow emphasize that the focus on key indicator species. So for instance, they lump sparrows, finches, etc., is unknown, to keep things simple. Yeah, so yeah, fully appreciate that. So, I mean, it is yeah up to you how you record that data, and it's just about making sure that the people that are part of your project are all doing it in a similar fashion. Cool. Yeah. So if you do have any more questions, feel free to get in touch. One thing I didn't mention is on the Trap.NZ website, we have forums. So those are probably the best way to get in touch. And we're really keen to see those grow and develop. And there's a bit of a community building there where people can answer each other's questions, provide tips on trapping, and find other people in the areas. Yeah, and Chris, I should have your email as part of your registration, so we can connect you up with a couple of people in Nelson. And yeah, hopefully they'll be able to help you on the ground and help get you set up. Okay, as long as there's no other questions coming through, we'll call it there. But yeah, thank you very much for coming along. And yeah, please do fill out those feedback forms and let us know what you'd like to see and what you like to see changed. And yeah, that's really good. So thank you very much for that. I'm just trying to find my screen again now. And okay, that's us. Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. And we'll let you know about the more advanced webinars coming out as well. Thank you.